We need it. Oxygen. It's why we breathe.
Hey everyone, welcome back. It's time for another episode of Small Business Stories. You know me, Dr. LL, Laurel Mears, founder of Steerus, the voice and the host behind Small Business Stories. And every week we've got amazing guests. And as we're getting into that whole financial literacy, tax timing, all that sort of stuff, we've got a wonderful guest here with us today, Dr. Erika Rasure. She speaks from her company, Beyond Finance, and gets into all of that other thorny side of things, like our relationship with money and debt and shame. Dr. Erika, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. LL.
And it's so nice we've got you live from the Midwest, and we'll have, like I said, us two Dr. Gals, and I'll probably jump in and call you Erica. Feel free, call me LL. We don't, we like to show respect, but we move on.
Yeah, I'm more than my title, as is most everybody. So
Well, let's just start right there because not everybody is. I
yeah,
have been corrected on numerous occasions that I need to call whomever,
yeah,
largely men with short man syndrome, but that's another story, that they insist on the doctor in their title. And they call me Ms. or Miss,
right, right.
right? You can't get bent out of shape and then go like, yo, if you're going to be doctor, then I need to be doctor, because then you get into this, ridiculous contest and who wants to have that much conflict. But
Right.
have you encountered this nonsense?
I have, it's a little bit of those that adage of, rules for thee, but not for me type of thing. And I always find that kind of fun to think about, and I definitely want to make it clear, I've had several colleagues, I come from academia where there's a lot of, and you know exactly where I'm at. There's a lot of education and work and blood, sweat, and a lot of times tears that go with those doctoral degrees and those PhDs. And I respect that. I went through that myself. And so, I've had plenty of colleagues, over the years, be like, I really prefer when students call me doctor or professor or whatever this, because it's representative of the work I've done. I feel like I've earned that and I feel like I'm entitled to that. And I say, that is wonderful for you, but make sure that people know that. Make sure that that is clear. Make sure that when you're explaining that to your students or colleagues, say, hey, I really prefer to be called doctor because it means a lot to me. It represents that work I put in. And I think there's a lot of respect when you can communicate that versus the automatic assumption that I shouldn't say anything. I should make myself small, not to say what I prefer to be called. And for me, most of the time, I don't care what you call me because I don't have an anchor with my title and my identity. They're two separate things in my world, in my experience. But that's my preference, and I make sure I communicate that to people. It doesn't matter what you call me, as long as we've got a good rapport and we've got good vibes and respect. We're good.
Oh, there you go. That's just it. My PhD advisor doodled throughout my thesis defense and said, it really doesn't matter. I'm like, oh, that's great.
Great.
5 years I spent. Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever. Next,
Yeah.
onward, right? Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It shapes us if we let it, right?
If we let it. If we let it. And I think there's that makes me laugh because I do feel like once you get to that, defense, that point, everybody's just like, okay, if you've made it this far, you're good. But I feel like it's dropping the bag right at the finish line. Like you could do so much more here, just a little bit more encouragement. We all know we're tired. We all know we're exhausted, but let's show up even at the end, even if we're tired, even if we know it's a sure thing, because it means a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah, because of the
Yeah,
work it took us to get there,
that's
which
right.
isn't any really different, I think, from in just academia, earning the degree, the small business, hitting whatever milestone or milestones it is, or financial success levels, right? A lot of us, there's that number out there now that, for good or for bad, is you need at least $1 million to retire. Depends on the market you live in, depends on the age you're retiring, and of
Right.
course, all these factors. But I want to get into that with you and with our audience. But before we go there, just because of the Academic Entrenchment Association, I want to get your thoughts on where we are as society. with
Okay.
respect to academia. So we know that four-year college degrees enrollment is going down, down, down.
Mhm.
We know that pretty much nobody finishes a four-year degree in 4 years. 5.5 to 6 years is the new average because students have to work to make money to pay for the said expensive, right? College. Where are we going with all of this with respect to bringing financial literacy and understanding the consequences of long-term debt and ROI from the day we go into college? It doesn't seem like that's brought up anywhere. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I can. And I think there's a lot of nuance there. And as somebody who considers herself a retired, but also sometimes recovering academic, it depends on what mood you catch me in. I still have a big heart, a big love for academia. I think one of the biggest pivots and shifts that I've observed, being in academia for, a decade, and then, even on my departure, my husband's still a professor and working in an academic institution. And I think one of the things I think colleges and universities really do need to put center stage is this idea. And again, this is going to be a hot take and maybe not really well received, but I really do think the colleges and universities need to treat their students like customers and really seek to provide customer service experiences for them, which include financial literacy and support. The days of the old ivory tower and tenure and all of that stuff, right, is I think is still steeped in a lot of institutions. And I think a lot of it is nostalgia. And I know it's also because, we don't like change. Humans don't like change. And in
No.
academia and it's I think it's slower to move because the environment is encouraged to be slower. It's steeped in thought and critique and all of those things, but academia has not moved fast enough to keep up with the needs of students. And so when students aren't finishing their degrees, if students aren't seeking gainful employment after that actually matters and can pay the bills, if students aren't getting the support while they're going through school, the there's that adage out there, the starving college student that still exists today. And I don't know in any, I'm 42. I was in college for a long time, and that was in the early 2000s, and we were starving back then. Nothing has changed. Why is that? And I know that existed before my time at university. So why aren't we making these changes? And I know we all have budgets to worry about, but if we were treating our students and our university employees and staff, um, I think in a different way with a different set of expectations, the outcomes for students would be a lot different.
Oh, exactly. And I do think that this starving student thing has been pervasive across generations. Even now here, so I'm based in New Jersey and I'm older than you are. And I went through some of those experiences. And I look here, the food banks are being hit really, really hard, not just by everyday consumers and families that have children, young children, and trying to get through, but being hit by university students, many of whom are working out arrangements with their universities and cafeterias so that they can provide some help so that they can get access to the food. It's problematic.
It is. It's very problematic. And even, there's trickle down effects. I mean, it's happening in public school districts all over the country. Most districts, I don't want to completely misquote this, but from my understanding, most districts have employees that are dedicated specifically to helping the homeless populations of students in public schools. And so why is that also not being handled as well as it could, the financial literacy piece in schools? And yes, I know, states are making a nice effort to, put forward legislation about, making personal financial education mandatory, but in what level, in what way? And it's not sticking.
No, and then just some other points around this because I'm involved in our community here up in Jersey. Over the last year, year and a half, so don't quote me exactly on the numbers, but something like 26 or 27 confidence closets have been established in schools. And I don't know if you have those in the Midwest, but what they are here is schools, middle schools and high schools, are looking at converting parts of their gym lockers into areas where there's washing machines and dryers, and then there's racks of either newly like new clothes or gently used clothes, all kinds of containers of toiletries so that people can wash their clothes, get clean, shower, all that stuff. Teachers, administrators, vice principals, and all this are taking time 1 day a week to offer haircuts so that they can help the students feel like cleaner and get, that more professional look and all of that. And these students have access to the schools as early as 5 in the morning so that they can get ready so that they're not teased. And so that's great because this is providing some of that, really bare essentials that these
Mhm.
youth need because they can't get them. They're homeless, they're living in their car and whatnot.
Right. Right.
But it needs to go to that next level where it's like, okay, we're going to provide you with some of the basic needs because you need those and you deserve those. But let's layer into that financial literacy so that you understand how you can get out of this pickle.
Yes, absolutely. And I would also argue that, the students who are not in a position to take advantage of these programs because they don't have to, which is a blessing in so many ways, but that they're also educated to know that, hey, this kind of stuff is not a reflection of the student. It's not a reflection necessarily of their parents either, but this is a reflection of what life can throw at you. We are all a moment's notice away from, having a majorly devastating life, financially impactful life event that can, as you grow up, this could happen to you. We all hope it doesn't. But I think there needs to be this more widespread emotional understanding in addition to the financial impacts of it all. So people from a young age learn to be more compassionate and kind and understanding toward their fellow men, women, and everything in between, because these are things that happen. And this is something, I work with hundreds of clients every week that are in tremendous amounts of debt. And they're doing everything they can to get out of it. And it's admirable, it's courageous, it's brave, it's all of those things. But the majority of the people I talk to are there because they got sick. They lost their job. Their wife died from breast cancer, and they spent every last penny they had plus every dollar on the credit card trying to keep her alive. You know, and these are the stories that aren't told in conjunction with personal financial education. It is more than just the numbers of, oh, I'm good at budgeting and debt is bad. There's so much more nuance to this that is just gone, just overlooked completely.
Now I want to see if I can break all this down because I've got about four pieces there threads that I want to pull on and move this. So one, first, just stepping back to even what you said, that at the college level, the students aren't ready with financial literacy. This is also at the employment level, where a lot of new folks entering are asking for financial literacy and financial counseling as part of their benefits because they recognize what's happened. Have you seen a big boost in that where you are?
Yeah. So, financial benefits for employees, a lot of employees have done a really good job in making EAP benefits inclusive of having some sort of financial counseling. But the issue is though, is how do I say this? Employees, I think a lot are always very concerned that their financial background and history will somehow impact their employment. One of the questions I get a lot is, I'm going through, a debt resolution program, or I've had a bankruptcy. How is this going to impact my future employment or my current employment? I said, so there's that issue there where, especially new employees, I think are very hesitant to take advantage of any employer sponsored plans or benefits as it relates to their finances because they are concerned with anonymity and things coming back to their employer. Even though there's laws that prevent all of that, there is that fear that, oh, my employer is going to know that I used this benefit. Somebody's going to know that they used it, right? And they don't want that coming back on them in a negative way. So there's that, but there is this understanding, I think a more widespread understanding that employers who offer financial assistance in terms of making sure that their employees are seeking some sort of support and have that support, that infrastructure for financial wellness benefits literally everybody.
Okay, exactly. Now I want to take that next step. So let's do a little financial myth busting. I think you started going down that path. A lot of people make the assumption, I've seen this, you see the rhetoric, right? There's a lot of vitriol online. People hide behind their avatars and they say the most
Sure.
outrageous things. But that said, in and around that, you see people saying, well, if you didn't spend and buy everything and get your fancy, lattes and frappuccinos every day, if you didn't buy all those clothes all the time, if you didn't go out every day, maybe you wouldn't be in debt. You'd actually be able to afford to pay and feed your children. Talk to us about what portion of that is the reality for people that are riddled with debt.
Yeah. So, and that's rhetoric we hear a lot. Again, it's a lot of nice hiding behind the screen, your keyboard, a lot of pointing fingers. Um, and in my work, I can only speak to my work, but I've been doing this for 21 years. And I would say anecdotally, maybe 15% of the people I've worked with in that long of a time have had genuine overspending issues
Mhm.
that are really just, I just don't care and I spend my money and that's what I do. Need some help with that now. I'm realizing that's a bad thing. But the other 85% are the people who are spending because they have to out of some sort of like life event, like we talked about, or they're using their money to plug holes emotionally. Sometimes, we have emotional responses to feeling trauma, right? Feeling a little traumatized. Just like, you stress eat, you stress spend.
Yes, I have retail therapy and food therapy. Yes, it is what I do. I've been under a lot of stress lately, gained a lot of weight, and spent a lot of money I shouldn't have. Right?
Yep. Right.
That's
Right.
that's how it goes. And go ahead, you were going to say something else.
Yeah. And so I think distilling it down to just this very simple concept of this finger wagging and finger pointing, if you could just stop doing that, that's you're everybody will be better off for it. Well, sometimes we can't stop doing that. And that's the worst advice you can give somebody. And that's where I think there's this absolute there. It's in those moments where I just want to like take somebody's finger and turn it back around on them and say, well, let's talk about you just a little bit. How are you with spending your money? When you're upset, how does that work out? When you're stressed, what do you do? Are you perfect 100% of the time? Let's see your checkbook. Not like your checkbook still exists, but
A digital version. It's just an
I'm
online
dating
PDF
myself here,
statement. Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And okay, one of the other threads, I'm still pulling through them and I'm like, because like I hate these hanging chads, right? Talk about dating yourself. Do you realize that was like 20 years ago, like 20
Right.
elections, like, ago? Yeah. Anyway, so the Florida hanging chads, right? Infamous though they were. That said, talking about the necessity of going into debt, mortgaging your home and whatnot to pay for medical bills because of a lack of insurance or inadequate insurance, these kinds of things. Just recently, we've seen the famous actor, James Van Der Beek, his unfortunate loss, leaving six young children behind, and his
Mhm.
wife, who put a pledge on GoFundMe
Yeah.
begging for help to cover medical costs. Steven Spielberg really catalyzed that, offering a $25,000 donation.
Mm,
And last I checked, it was approaching $3 million.
yeah.
But some new information has also come to light where he put the purchase down payment on a $5 million ranch. So now people are thinking, wait a minute, you kind of pulled me in here because, oh, you had me at, oh my goodness, medical expenses, death, young children orphaned, horrific. But do you need to live in that $5 million house? So coming back to that finger pointing, finger wagging accusations that you're not spending right, how do you make sense of all of that as a financial expert?
That has been weighing on my mind for since his death last week. I mean, it's been such an interesting roller coaster seeing that play out in the media. And I think it's important that we have to remember that James Vanderbeek is a human. He is a human being and he has five real children and one real wife that survive him. Like we have to remember that there are people here, there are hearts involved, and grief does really strange and odd things. And I know his wife Kimberly has gotten so much criticism for starting a GoFundMe hours after he died. The overwhelming response to his GoFundMe, I think, speaks volumes probably about James Vanderbeek's character. And I think, Kimberly has been very, very much vilified in the media, for capitalizing on people's sense of nostalgia. And then there's been the criticism from the keyboard warrior saying, why stop giving your money to celebrities? Why are you doing that? I don't think it's right to tell anybody how to spend their money. Especially if there was an impact, music, movies, words,
Mhm.
nostalgia, they all can move us emotionally. And if that moves us to open up our wallets to honor somebody's memory so their children and wife have a better life, I think that is well within our limits and boundaries as a human. If you don't like it, don't do it, But at the same time, the criticism around the mortgage coming out, it was a 4 point something million mortgage. And the narrative that has come out is that he was able to get enough money for a down payment from friends to buy the home and put it into a trust. And I want to put this in very simple terms for people who are listening. Is it cheaper to buy or rent? Let's just throw that out there right now. Is it cheaper to buy or rent? And the value of the property not aside, the fact that they have a $1 million mansion that they are renting out in Hollywood Hills or Malibu or wherever that is, it is cheaper to buy a home in most situations. So what he effectively did with the help of his friends who chose to spend their money however they chose to spend it, lowered the housing costs for his wife and for their children. Not only that, let's think about that rental property in California. It provides income to his family. I think the criticism has been harsh. I understand at a very human level what likely went down is that it was cheaper than renting. He was trying to secure an income stream and, just a better future for his family. And I understand, that people like to say, well, she should downsize, she should do this, she should do that. Well, what about the fact that there are five children, one mom, and they left their life in California to live here. They've been there for a while. What is wrong with allowing that family to have stability? I don't get it. I think it's just been really cruel. And I don't know if you saw this, and I know I'm talking a lot about this, but it's been I think you can tell I've given some thought about this. And you're the first person to ask me about this. And so I was kind of just waiting for somebody to ask me about it. But there's controversy that came over. Do you remember that he was doing some fundraisers for some of his memorabilia? And obviously, some of that included signed jerseys. Well, unfortunately, some of those orders will obviously be unfulfilled because he's not alive to sign them. And there was an email that went out yesterday that was also, I think, generally, panned by a lot of the media I had seen in terms of, hey, we're not going to give you a full refund. Here's your two options. Did you see that by chance?
It's well, the thing is, the effects are now so damaging that they've clearly
Mhm.
hired a PR firm because
Yeah.
I've seen damage control and been on that media side of things where this is
Yeah.
what's happening, trying to
Hmm.
counter the
Hmm.
negativity. And
Yeah.
I bring it up because there's so many layers to it. And I thought, oh, it'd be so timely for our show that
Yeah.
it's we're never obligated, right, to have to give money unless it's like it's taxes, these kinds of things we can't avoid, right? But when it's voluntary, right, do you want to donate to this cause, to save this dog, or do this, or GoFundMe, pay for this funeral, whatever it is, we don't have to do it. We're
Yeah.
making that choice, and we can't have so-called buyer's remorse after we find out the rest of the story. We made
Mhm.
the choice. Something compelled us to do it, and we've got to stay, I think, in that moment and hold on to our humanity that something moved us, and let's
Mhm.
stay there rather than trying to analyze it and then retract it. And oh my goodness, now we've been, so deeply scammed. I mean, this seems to be the MO, and it's eroding society.
Right. And I agree. I very much think it is eroding society in the sense that, we're damned if we do, damned if we don't, when it comes to our money decisions. And I think that goes to show this very black and white view on money. This is good, this is bad. Anything in that gray area can be called into question at a moment's notice by strangers who have no investment and no backstory. I don't know what happened in James Vanderbeek's life before he died. I don't know if he spent his money on alternative therapies or if it was a combination. It's his choice
Mhm.
and his family's choice to make those decisions. And if people want to give money for them, like you said, it's also their choice. But we also have to remember we don't know what happened behind closed doors and how bold of us to speculate and to criticize and condemn and complain about the estate of a man who leaves behind five really beautiful children.
Yeah, it just I think it opens up the question to everything, and we've all become so skeptical because we've seen, right, from the collapse of Enron, right, to the oh my goodness, Maddox,
Oh
right,
yeah,
all of that stuff, like
yeah.
all of these huge epic fallouts. Theranos, Elizabeth Holmes, right,
Oh
built
yes.
people out of $1 billion. Not just that. Oh, by the way, that little bit of blood you're going to have in there, we'll make sure we detect if you have cancer or not. And people died because they didn't get treatment and they
Mhm.
were misdiagnosed, right? So
Right.
we've got a growing body of evidence that suggests we are more likely to be scammed, right,
Mhm.
than we
Sure.
are likely to be able to
Absolutely.
put money into something good. So
Mhm.
how do we get out of this headspace? And do we ever? Do we just stay focused in our own lane and say, I got to focus on getting out of this rental situation because people that rent really never make their money back and grow? Like, where do we put our attention, Erica? What do we do?
So the one thing I want to say about that is unless you're trolling somebody online, nobody cares about your money as much as you do. Point blank, period. At the end of the day, it's interesting, going back to Vanderbeek for a second, there are a lot of people who cared about him, obviously, and were willing to donate to his family. But for the majority of us, that's not the case. We're not, that outlier. And so we have to make sure that if we are looking for financial security or stability or freedom, wherever our values lie, is that we are the ones who are solely in charge of that. And things like Vanderbeek's legacy is, interestingly enough, left a huge financial lesson for everybody. And so wherever you're at in your life, it's making sure that you're minding your P's and Q's, staying in your lane. I like the way you put that, but because you're honoring yourself, not because you're, trying to shut out the world, but you have to hone in and focus on what your priorities are, because your priorities aren't going to be the same as somebody else's. They might be the same in name. Like, a lot of people have financial security or stability or freedom as financial values, but your definition of financial freedom and mine are going to look a lot different. And so how do we, make sure that we're honoring that? And we do that by making sure that those external influences are limited, that we are not changing our priorities because somebody is being really loud about their values that don't belong to us, and making moral judgments around money that don't deserve to be judged morally whatsoever.
Uh, Amen to that. All right, let's just cast this a little bit more widely because everything we've talked about so far isn't limited to the level of the individual thinking, right? In B2C. This really applies as businesses, small business owners. Loans are up higher than ever, right? We look at the factors like I mean, I'm sure you're way deeper into this than I am, but studies show that about half of households are one paycheck away from financial disaster right now. And then studies also show from small business authorities that about three-quarters of small businesses are surviving on loans.
Mhm.
So let's break that down and talk about the psychology of it and how the financial stress is affecting decision making and how it just continues to feed into a problem of emotional regulation and how people are so committed to their business. They'll do this, they'll go deeper in debt, just one more try, one more thing, almost like that gambler. Well, one more round of cards, one more, right? One more poker chip, one more. I got this one, I got this one. I'm going to warm up again, right? Talk to us about all that psychology that you've seen in your years of expertise with this.
Right. So the first thing that immediately comes to mind is the sunk cost fallacy, right? Where we've already put this much in it and we're going to keep going. We're going to get that one more hit, right? We're gonna hit blackjack here. And because of that, a lot of people are really hesitant to cut the cord when the cord needs to be cut, um, to avoid deeper financial entanglement or engagement. And like you said, the effect on the financial stress and anxiety and that uncertainty that unfolds with it, which really does rock people's identities. And so many entrepreneurs and small business owners I've met over the years, they go into it with this really aspirational, inspirational, kind of, I don't want to say naive worldview, but the realities of doing what you love and being in the ditches with what you love and digging in them are two different things. And so I've seen people very early on in their entrepreneurial careers. I see this a lot with my wellness kind of focused folks who, want to open the Pilates studios or the yoga studios or sound healing type of situation, and they go into it because they have the love of those things, but not necessarily the business acumen or desire to run the business side of things. And I find that, more often than not. And so people end up learning that they don't love what they set out to do, but are afraid to walk away from it because what will other people think? My finances won't recover for a little while. Well, the question then, of course, becomes, who cares what people think? Let's unpack that a little bit. But also, what happens if you don't walk away? What happens if you don't choose something different? And and you probably, I would imagine you'd agree with me on this, but when you become a small business owner, there's a lot of narrative around there about how it's so much better to work for yourself and not have to work for the man and for a paycheck and all of those things. And I really do think that keeps people very, very stuck when they don't have to be.
Oh yeah. It's really, really heavy. Like at the risk of like, okay, Captain Obvious, right? Just the understatement of the year right there.
Mhm.
But I think it speaks to the next question I have here prepared for you is that you get wrapped around in this cloak of shame and silence when you're under financial stress. I've done it. I've lived it even with my business and all of that, over the years, different sort of phases that I've gone through, success, highs, lows, all the rest of this, being terrified to even open a bank statement that's come through the mail, or just being absolutely unwilling and resistant to update a P&L because I'm like, oh my God,
Yes.
no, last quarter sucked it. I can't do it. I can't face it. So what do? I'll go shopping,
Do something else.
right? Like I'm
Right.
I'm I'm not a weirdo, right? Like this is kind of sort of normal, understandable behavior.
You're you're not a weirdo. I can tell you that with 100% certainty. You can have my guarantee on that one. But this is a very, very common thing. And this is also something that keeps people really stuck is that, we turn into avoidance, when you've got something looming in front of you that either you don't like to do or you don't want to do. And super common when it comes to financial tasks. Whether the outcome is good or bad, it's worse when you're not looking forward to it, when you're pretty sure you're not going to like what you want to see. But it exists even, with the kind of the simplest type of things. One of the examples I use all the time with, tax time coming up is I hate doing my taxes. I just dread it. I'm good at them. It doesn't take me very long to do it, but boy, getting me to sit down and do it is just like pulling teeth. And I've had to build rituals around that. My ritual for doing my taxes, and I will tell anybody this, is I go to the gas station, I get a giant Diet Dr. Pepper with crunchy ice and a box of hot tamales, and I sit down, I do my taxes, I drink the Dr. Pepper, I crunch the ice, I get the hot tamales, and it's a thing. And it gets me through it. And so that's one of my recommendations for people who are experiencing a hard time getting through financial tasks that are, I would say, kind of low hanging fruit, low stakes, right? But when what you're describing though is, when the stakes might be a little bit higher, when there's an expected more negative outcome, that goes into what I would consider trigger territory, financial trigger territory.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's one thing to get annoyed with having to do your taxes and forcing yourself to sit down and do it and building a little ritual to take the edge off, if you will. But when you are, you know, looking at a behavior, an action or activity that has a physiological component where you might, feel a little bit sick to your stomach, or, you feel your chest getting tight, you notice that you're not breathing, all of those things, you feel that overwhelming sense of dread. You can literally feel your cortisol rise from your nose to your toes, like it just comes right up and it's right here and you feel it. That to me is is a sign that, and stress too is a signal that your body's trying to protect you from something. There's something off. And so noticing your triggers, noticing what they do to your body, and starting to take note of them, quite honestly, taking note of them and starting to write down when those triggers happen. I definitely recommend keeping a journal, and starting to pay attention so you can start to notice patterns. And it's sometimes it's hard to pinpoint where things are coming from emotionally, behaviorally, relationally, all of those cognitively, if you don't have enough evidence. Your brains need evidence. We need a little bit of data. So the more data you can have, so you can start making patterns to try and heal what's going on. And that's what these triggers really represent, in my definition, is what needs to be healed. And on the same side of that, the other important level of work that needs to be done simultaneously in observing the patterns is what I call glimmer work. It's triggers and glimmer work. So as much as you're writing down what's triggering you, your response, what the event was, it's also writing down the things that are going well, the things that feel like financial wellness. You might not be okay with opening a bill because you know what it's going to be and it's upsetting you, but there's also this glimmer that could exist where you catch yourself and you say, I noticed I was triggered. My first instinct was to go shopping. I didn't go shopping. That's a glimmer. And being able to make patterns and sense of both over time, that is one of the things that my clients who've worked with me have had a lot of success with, including myself. It's work I do with my own self.
It's essential. I am somebody, like I said, I call myself an invisibility decoder. I find patterns, right? It's that
Yeah.
PhD analytical side of things.
Yes.
And right. And then you want to look and find the patterns. But then it's also where that emotional side of things, tries to weigh over. It's almost like the little angel and the little devil, right? Sitting
Yeah.
on either shoulder, like this one's
Yeah.
pulling and saying, oh, but be kind to yourself. You had such a rough week. Go ahead and buy that
Right.
pretty shirt. It's so sparkly. And then the devil, actually that's the devil saying that. And the angel's like, no, 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 you've just recognized that this is a pattern. Be good to yourself. Don't resist. You're gonna get out of this. Right. It's that yin yang, right?
Mhm.
That constant
Oh yeah.
tension.
Oh
That yeah, like I and as much as I said, like, oh, am I a weirdo? I really don't care. Like, that's just it. I am who I am. I'm a
yeah. Yes.
work in progress, right? And
Mhm.
I know I'm constantly getting better because I'm doing a better job looking
Yeah.
at these patterns within myself, patterns that are out there. What can I learn from? Learn from others, right? Do not do as I say, right? Do as I do, right? Or the other way around, depending
Right.
on what your philosophy
Do as
is,
I say, not as I
right?
do, or do as I do and not as I say, whichever works.
Right, right. It just, again, it all depends on the spin, like what direction you're going in.
Right.
Now, that said, as we're coming to the end of our show here, Dr. Erica, what would you like to suggest to our audience, which is really comprised of quite a variety of folks, from solopreneurs who are just trying to eke it out to we have many folks in our audience who are making, 100, 200, $300 million as their business entity. So it's a pretty big bell curve.
Yeah. So I think just something to noodle on for anybody listening is, one of the biggest pieces of advice or points of reflection I have is, security that's built on self-abandonment is really, really expensive. And so do take a look as you are reflecting on, what you're doing with your money, what you're doing with your debt, how you feel about your money emotionally, relationally, behaviorally, what your general state of financial wellness is make sure that you're building your security from a foundation that is authentic and true to you. And I think that's the thing, the security and stability often looks like you're being responsible. It's the right job title, it's the right revenue, it's, staying in the relationship that, looks good on the surface and actually isn't, underneath, it's all of these things. And sometimes it's really hard to recognize when you're in the middle of not living authentically. And if you've built your sense of security on that, you've built it on a house of cards.
Ooh, excellent. So, Dr. Erika Rasure of Beyond Finance, where can people find you or learn more about your programs and path to financial wellness?
Absolutely. So if you want to connect with me directly, the only social media I use is LinkedIn. So feel free to connect with me there, send me a message, all good. But if you want to check out the work I do and the work around debt that I'm so incredibly passionate about, please visit beyondfinance.com. I do have a wellness tab at the top of that page there. It says financial wellness, and I've got a bunch of resources there. We've got a fun quiz, kind of tell you where you're at in terms of your, anxiety, stress, and just great articles, great resources to help support you no matter where you are, in your financial wellness and emotional journey as well.
Excellent. I hope you and I are connected on LinkedIn. I didn't even look because then we
I
can
don't think we
amplify each other's
are, which is
efforts.
silly, but
Well, I do request that in my booking link because it's so important, again, that amplification, right? How do we
yeah,
help each other's networks and grow and learn from each other? So
yeah,
we'll make sure that happens. Now, last question,
definitely.
our signature question of the
Okay.
day, right?
All right.
Hundreds and hundreds of people asked. Dr. Erica, if we looked in that closet of yours in the Midwest and there was a pair of footwear, shoes, boots, whatever your thing is, that personified who you, Dr. Erika Rasure, is and what you represent and what makes you you, what are we looking at?
It is a pair of leopard print Uggs. It's what they are. I am a lady who likes to stay comfy and casual as much as possible, but leopard print is one of my favorite things to wear, and I accessorize with it often because it's just fun.
Fun and functional, right? Like, why
Fun and
not?
functional.
Yeah, yeah.
You'll never see me in head to toe leopard print because I think that's just a little too much. But it's not unusual to find me in. I've got this great $7. It was on clearance. I got it at Walmart 2 weeks ago. It's like this half zip fuzzy leopard print situation, and it's amazing, and it's been keeping me warm in these chilly winter
That
days.
is
So
perfect, right?
as spring starts coming in and teasing us with, okay, we're gonna have spring today, and today it's gonna be 35. Yeah.
Well, there you go. See, spoken from somebody who understands finances, looking everywhere, and just looking at what makes you feel good, but being
Yes,
aware of your finances, right, to do it and not going in too
absolutely.
far to sink yourself. So with
That's
that,
right.
it's been a wonderful conversation. I appreciate you being on the show, and good luck with tax season and financial literacy month in April.
Thank you so much, and good luck to everybody else here because when it comes to taxes, Lord knows we all need to get yourself a Dr. Pepper, get yourself a ritual around your financial tasks. I'll leave you with that.
And how about that fantastic intro by Touch Circle?